This is the Seven Figure Standard Podcast, hosted by Arash Vossoughi and Mykie Stiller, with mindset and strategies to help you break through and create personal freedom.
Hello, and welcome to the Seven Figure Standard Podcast. I'm Mykie Stiller, joined by my co-host, Arash Vossoughi, and we're so happy to be here with you this week, talking about emotional resilience, how to stay unshakable when your results lag. So, Arash, first, how are you?
I'm great, Mykie. How are you?
I am doing great, and I really love this term, emotional resilience, and I would love for you to give it meaning for us.
Well, emotional resilience is you keep persisting even when the results don't show. You know, the results are so interesting because they always tell us the truth of what we thought about in the past, what actions we took, how determined we were, if we were working with urgency. That's all it tells us, but it shouldn't define us. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty simple formula. How do you create better results? Be great. It's so simple. When I coach people, I always tell them this. I'm going to show you how to significantly increase your income. I'm going to significantly increase your leadership. But it's not by what you think. All I focus with them is becoming what they want. So whenever we let the results control us and it drops our energy and we get down about it, we gave all the power to the wrong thing. Letting our results control us, we get so committed to what we don't want. So committed. And all we're asking for, keep giving me more of what I don't want. And so we have to understand that all we have to do is focus on us. And everybody listening to this, until you master yourself, your results are not going to change. So if you say you're going to do something, let's say the night before you say you're going to go to the gym and then you renegotiate with yourself, your word didn't matter. Or if you said, you know what, tomorrow I'm going to prospect 20 people and you don't do it, well, that's the problem. So when we're talking about building mental resilience, understand greatness demands decision. You have to decide who I'm going to be. You can't say, I decide who I'm going to be, then other days decide I'm not going to be there. There's no gray area. You either decide to be it or you decide not to be it. So it's not going to take motivation. It takes a why to remind you. So what is your why? And I would keep your why on your phone as a screensaver. So every time you look at it, even when you're falling back, because you will fall back. This isn't about perfection. I'd be lying to you if I said I never fall back or I never not let the outside control me. But I don't do it very often. I'm always thinking what can I control? What I do, my habits, my actions, my thinking. And so to really create great results, you have to develop mental toughness. You have to develop and bulletproof your mind. Now, you got to understand your mind's not your friend. It is not your friend. It can be your greatest ally if you reprogram it properly. But if your mind was your friend, let's say somebody had a goal, Mike, and said, I'm going to triple my income. Then they get an opportunity. Then they have this voice in their head that says, don't be safe. Don't do that. You don't know if it's going to work. Well, can I show you why it's not your friend? Because if it was your friend, it'd say, go after it. So it can be your friend as you develop bulletproof mindset, but it's not always our friend. We have a battle every day in our mind. Who are we going to be? And if we're letting the results control us, I promise you, we're not being anything of significance.
Whenever I think about resilience, I think a lot of people have this solution to creating resilience in avoidance, avoiding intaking their results or looking at the results or looking at what might trigger a reaction. But that's definitely not what you want. How do you look at the results neutrally and not let it spark a reaction inside you?
Okay, you just said something so good. I didn't hear the rest of what you said. I just heard one thing because it was so good. Avoidance. That is our greatest sabotager. We don't get to the truth. So you're going to have to re-ask the rest of the question again, because here's what I do when I coach people. I say, why are you avoiding this? Why not just look at it straight in the eye? So when we avoid, all we're doing is pushing it down, and it's going to come back in a negative way. So we want to, let's say I get a terrible week. Let's say I have a terrible week, but I don't look at what created the terrible week. It's always me. It is always me. It's nobody else. Because nothing gets created without my permission. You know, if you want to earn more, you got to upgrade your thinking. Our greatest responsibility is to think in a certain way. What is that certain way? The way we want to live, whatever that is. You know, but what happens are people are always avoiding. The other day, I asked somebody that I'm coaching, and I said, I want you to write out who you're going to be. So they gave it back to me, and it was very generic. I said, you're not valuing yourself. You can't even take the time to write it out. You have to write out, if you value yourself, you're going to take time to say, this is who I'm going to be. This is who I'm not going to be anymore. Anyway, I gave him the feedback, and I said, why don't you redo it? And now you have, you know, my direction, so you understand what I'm telling you. I don't hear from the person. And I call him on a Sunday. So this is 3 days later. And I said, I'm surprised I haven't heard from you. And he said, well, I started it, but I haven't finished it. I said, have you ever heard me coach you and say, do it in 72 hours? I say, I tell you to do it now. When we value ourselves, we do it right away. You know, one of the biggest reasons why people are not getting great results, they have zero urgency. Zero urgency. And if you're not hungry, God cannot use you. You have to be hungry. You have to really want it. You know, why have you ever seen a sheep create great results? You always see leaders create great results. Why? Because they're urgent. Now, I can tell you, your results are not going to be an arrow up to success. That's not how it works. It is going to go up, down, sideways, backwards, but you keep persisting and keep the vision in your mind. And through building your belief, everything's going to change. Now, do you know, if I had two people, that one person has a type 8 skill set, but a type 2 belief, okay? Then I had another person who has a type 2 skill set and a type 8 belief. Do you know the person who has a type 8 belief is going to outperform the person with a 10 skill set? Every single time. You know, skill set is pretty easy. It's just repetition. So somebody could be doing a thing, and then all of a sudden it's just automatic, but that they have no belief, they're not going to create the result. You know, so belief is critical to really build significant resilience when the results are not where you want them to be. The results are always a delay, but it's always based on who we think we are. Always.
So what I was saying about avoidance, because I want to come back to this, is I think that's a lot of people's solution to not reacting to the outside results. They're just going to avoid what the results are currently. But you talk about how important it is to be honest with yourself, brutally honest with yourself about your current results so you can go where you want to go. How do you look at your current results, if they are lagging, and stay neutral?
Well, it's just about awareness. You got to be intentional. Why do people avoid? Because they want to avoid pain. Mm-hmm. You know, and you can't change what you don't acknowledge. So every time you don't acknowledge something, you can't bring it to the surface to change it. But if you acknowledge it, then you could say, oh, this is where I want to get better. This is just about getting better. We have to have an obsession about getting better. 95% of the people, Mike, right now are struggling. Why are they struggling? Because they don't understand themselves. They don't understand what's possible. And they don't spend the time to believe in themselves. Like, I'm always reprogramming myself every single day. Every single day I'm reprogramming myself because I know I don't want the world to program my mind. You know, and so it's important to understand. So we've got to understand I said this yesterday to a group I was working with, and I said, do you want to repeat the last 3 years as your next 3 years? And you could just see it through the Zoom screen. Like everyone's like, no, no. I don't either. I feel like if I did that, I would have wasted 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't know how long we have. None of us know how long we have. And that's why I want to empty the tank every day. I want to empty the tank. That's why I'm very critical about who I surround myself with. I don't surround myself with people not making it happen. I just don't. That's just not who I am. I'm not saying there's anything wrong. It's just my philosophy. I like being around people who serve. I like being around people who work on big ideas. I don't spend time during the week on anything that is not going to grow me. Like it's been like that forever, So we've got to really understand what we're doing. And that's how you're going to build resilience. But hold on one sec. It's day in, day out. You just need to do it one day at a time.
What might someone be experiencing in their life, emotionally or mentally, when they know they need to work on emotional resilience?
Well, what I've discovered, people don't decide who they're going to become. They decide what they want, but they never decide who they're going to become. And we can't decide who we're going to become without deciding what we don't want to be anymore. So we got to decide what we don't want to be. I remember a few weeks ago, I was in Italy. This is an example of it. It's a silly example, but it's an example. My wife and I and my kids were eating, and she's eating all these vegetables, right? And I'm like, do you know, I hardly eat any vegetables or fruit. Like I said, I'm done with that. So I on the trip, started eating vegetables and fruit. And I came home and I've like tripled that. Because I said, what am I doing? And I decided what I didn't want. That's what I did. But I remember, I shared this story recently on our podcast. Like I remember when I got really honest with myself and said, what are you doing basically? You're a fraud. And I said, you can't even master yourself. How can you get better results? People don't even give themselves a chance. For most people, that's why 95% of the people are struggling, is they never stay long enough. They never do a thing long enough to get a result, and they're always quitting on themselves. So I watch people who brag to me they've read all these books. And I said, well, tell me about the books. What have you implemented? And they freeze. See, I don't read a lot of books. I have a lot of books. I've read a lot of books in my life, but I read one page 200 times. Because until it's implementation, you're just delusional. You're delusional.
At the beginning of today's episode, we said how to stay unshakable when results lag. And I hate talking about a problem like results lagging without talking about the solution. So if you are experiencing your results lagging, what's your solution to that?
Go to the cause. Why is it lagging? Like, why is it lagging? Like, is it just I need more repetition, more time, but I'm doing all the right thinking. I'm thinking from my future self. I'm taking actions out of my comfort zone. I'm improving my skill set and my belief system. I am upgrading my service. Or is it because you're covering up your old self and still operating from that? That's what most people are doing. They think I listen to a podcast, so I'm being my future self. Not unless you implement it. Not unless you implement it. I always tell people, like, if you don't want high standards or have high standards or high value, you're not going to understand me. You're not going to understand me. And because standards are the most important thing we can build. If you, like I said earlier, tell me a person who masters themselves, they're not losing. They're not losing, I promise you. And so we got to be really great at modeling proven practices. Like, I think all my frameworks are the best in the world. And I only say that because of the results, not that just I've created, that our clients have created, but it's like model proven practices at work. That's all you have to do.
Mhm.
You know, you don't want to model mine? Fine, don't model mine. Go find somebody else that you really like and model theirs. Model proven practices at work, because all we are no different than a computer. What we install with our practices become who we are. And you'll always know a person, the real person, by what they think, how the actions they take when they're by themselves when no one's watching. That's the real person. That'll tell you that will tell you the most honest assessment, But you can't grow without action. So this is like super important to understand.
You said something so important there at the beginning, and you just emphasized it. You said you can't just say, oh, I'm listening to podcasts and expect the result. If you're not implementing it, you have to take the action. And I think so many times people think, oh, I'm doing the work. I'm reading books, I'm studying, I'm doing a coaching program. But that's the main piece they're missing, is they're not implementing whatever it is that they're learning.
Yeah, it's because people are not coachable. Because it's out of their comfort zone. You want to be the most coachable person in the world. Everyone listening to this, I want you to be the most coachable person. Because you have no idea where you could take this. You can have it all. People are like, I can have it all. Yeah, you can have it all. But it's just about self. Do you want to master yourself? What circles do you stand in? Who do you mastermind with? Who's mentoring you? How do you speak? What type of actions do you take? That'll tell you the story.
So what are some actions that someone can take to start developing emotional resilience?
Well, first, you can't develop emotional resilience until you decide who you're going to become. So I would encourage everyone, without judgment, decide who am I going to become? But then I want you to decide who you're not going to be anymore. So I'm not going to avoid. I'm not going to chase money. I'm not going to start and stop. These are the people I'm going to eliminate from my life because they're super negative. They're programming me the wrong way. Decide what you are not going to be anymore. So now you've opened the space for a completely different life. But this takes work. This takes you actually doing what I'm saying. And until you value yourself, the world is not going to value you.
I want to point out that as you said what you don't want to be, you said it very neutrally. You didn't say it with shame. You didn't say it with a lot of energy. You didn't say it with a lot of, oh, I'm not going to do this anymore and I feel really bad about it. It was just, I'm just not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to be that anymore.
Well, none of it's with shame. The two most important things that I do for myself every day is do the hardest thing right away, first thing. And number two is be so damn good to myself all day long. Being honest doesn't mean you have to shame yourself. Mm-hmm. It's just observing yourself. So I don't think life is a game of failure more than it is a game of success. It's how we respond to the failure, how we pivot forward from the failure, not letting the failure define us. No negative thought has to define us. So you really have to decide, who am I going to become? And I say this a lot to my clients. I say, what is it costing you not being the best version of yourself? And then another question is, what is it costing you not having great relationships? I don't know anybody who wins significantly who's always in a corner by themselves. My mentor used to tell me, you have to do it by yourself, Arash, but you can never do it alone. The people doing it alone, they're never going to win. And a lot of people are trying to do it alone. So, if you want to really know how to be successful, listen to this over and over again. Because every day we're either sacrificing to build the life we want, or we're sacrificing the life we want for immediate gratification. Losers go after immediate gratification. Winners go after delayed gratification. So ask yourself, is one of the patterns that I don't want to be anymore, is going after immediate gratification? Now, I want everyone to listen to this. I want you to have the best relationships. I want you to become the best leaders. I want you to have the most amount of money, because that tells us how many people you've impacted. I want you to be in the greatest health. I want you to have the greatest experience. But the only person you have to chase is you. You have to chase your own greatness.
I think that is the perfect note to end today's episode on. That was fantastic. Arash, thank you so much. Thanks to all of you. If you enjoyed today's episode, go ahead and leave us a rating and review. And most importantly, share this with your friends and family and on social media. And we'll see you next week on another episode of the 7-Figure Standard podcast.
Thank you for listening to this episode of 7-Figure Standard. We hope you found the insights and strategies helpful on your journey to success. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform to help us reach more people like you. To learn more about Arash and Mykie and how Voss Coach & Co. can help you achieve your goals and reach new levels of success, visit vosscoachandco.com. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of 7-Figure Standard.